Suck up fit people and welcome to Sound 88, your place to get the confidence to try things yourself. My name is Henry Frank, I'm a music producer, and today's show is about sound selection. Now, before I even begin the show, I want to send a big shout out to the one and only EA Ski. I've been watching his YouTube channel for some time, and amazing producer. I mean, he worked with some of the best in the games, but I can't talk about this without giving credit to Yeski because it is something that I've been doing ever since I started producing, and I've done it naturally by ear and based on some of the best producers that I listen to, and especially back in the days, like we're talking about Dr. Dre, Timbaland, Pharrell, Kanye, Scott Storch and all, but sound selection has been something very important to me, only because it's funny. Because I have not had the opportunity to purchase some of the most expensive gears or just hardware gears in general. Like, I produced, well, back in the days when I started producing, was mostly with just, I'm watching a Manchester United game right now, and yeah, they're winning. So, anyway, preseason. So I've used only a computer when I first started. No MIDI keyboards, no fancy studio monitors or any of that. And I'm sure a lot of people can relate, especially come talking about Haiti. When I started making beats in Haiti, I mean, I did not have anything besides a little Dell laptop and Fruity Loops. That's it. So we're talking about like couple years later, I did get some more gears, but to be honest, I was not knowledgeable enough to say, man, I need this type of compressor, I need this type of MIDI keyboard, or I'm using this type of software because the sound is different. All I was relying on was my ears and just comparing some of the beats I would make to some of the greats. I would literally download some instrumentals, and one of the main instrumental that I just gravitated towards was that song "Be Without You" from Mary J. Blige, produced by Dr. Dre. That instrumental, I had a very, very good version of it, and I think it was 2006 that I got a hold of that instrumental, and I broke it down to to the max. I'm talking about from how the snares are clapped, like hit, how there was some type of reverb to it, how the kick hit, how everything was so smooth and spacey. I could not figure out the best way to do some of the spacey vibe. At the time, I did not know how to do that. But over time, I got to understand certain VSTs that you can use that already have those, and then big one was Nexus. If you started with FL Studio at some time, maybe you did buy it, but I know a lot of people, including myself, found some crack version of those VSTs, and one of the most popular one was Nexus 2 at the time. Fast forward now, I have the official Nexus 4, which I still enjoy, but we're talking about back in the days, some of these VSTs had some preset sounds from their banks that were really, really good, really good, and they already had the space vibe that you're looking for. So it's not just straight, just one little sound that you can. It's almost like a mono, but it's a stereo vibe, even if it's mono. Point is, the sound was much more professional. And moving forward, fast forward, I got to understand how to pretty much structure my beats so they don't sound very, very robotic. If you are using, well, even nowadays, if you are using, some production software, again, I'm coming from FL Studio. Nowadays, I'm using exclusively Studio One for my production, and I absolutely enjoy it from both a sound perspective and from a workflow. But I think sound is more important than workflow, hands down. I will never prioritize workflow against versus sound. Like sound will have to come first, because when think about it, somebody who's listening to your beat or a song, it doesn't matter where you recorded it, in a bathroom, or how you produced the track, like in a car, or in your trunk. Like it doesn't matter where you produced the track or how you did it. You did it super fast, like it took you 10 seconds to do it, or it took you 5 days to do it. It doesn't matter. The sound is what matters. At the end of the day, what you get out of it is what's the most important part. And I've done that over years after years. I think I pushed myself even further, because either back then I couldn't afford going to the store and buying some of the most expensive gears. I got some of the basics, but I could not afford some of the bigger sounds. Then took a break from music, like for almost like was almost 12 years. 12 years, I was focused on other things. But when I got back to it, I still didn't really have a budget for music, because I was paying my bills and thinking of my family and stuff. But with that mindset, knowing I don't have some of the most expensive gears or the right gears, I focused on the digital format to try to make it sound as good as it can sound, as professional as it can sound, with the limited knowledge that I had. Right, I'm not a mixing engineer, and a lot of producers are not necessarily mixing engineers, but you need to have some level of mixing. Whether when you have to level your beats, the volume of each instruments in it, or whether it's the fact that after you bounce your beat, like it doesn't sound the same in your studio monitors compared to your car. And I got to learn different things over time. And one of the tricks for me was the low end when it comes to kicks. How to make sure that your 808 sound good in your studio monitors, but you play that same beat on your phone, the phone speakers, you can't really hear the 808. So I got to understand, okay, sometimes you can layer something, like a kick. You have a club kick underneath your 808. Not too loud so that it doesn't dominate the 808, but loud enough that if you play it on a computer speaker or on your phone speaker, or I always make that reference, those American Airlines headset. I'm talking about like back in early 2000. I don't know if they still do these little headset. I don't even think they give you a headset these days. But point is, when you have some type of low budget speakers, that's not formatted for big low end sounds. If you know how to layer your kicks, you will find some type of kick, like you will hear the kicks in those cheaper speakers. So that's one little trick. But I'm talking about more like, let's say if you have a piano on your beat, like to not make it sound like dun 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 dun, where you could make it sound automatically. Just this difference makes it, even if it's not necessarily a professional gear, but to the ear it sound more like, well, you kind of know what you're doing, or you have some sounds that sound professional, that doesn't sound like it's in a very, very cheap software. Even if the software is expensive, it doesn't matter. It's still about sound selection. And that goes the same way when it comes to drums. And again, big shout out to Yeski on that, because it's like Yeski, like both Yeski and Pharrell, there's two separate occasions where I listen to these guys, and I it's something that I've done, but I was not able to put it in words. But after hearing them two different things, I'm like, that's exactly what and I just shut down. I'm like, I shut up. I'm like, he's putting in words what I've been thinking, but not understanding the importance of it. I just do it because I know that's what feels good. That's what makes me feel confident about a beat. And he talks, Yeski, he talks a lot about sound selection. And when he talks about sound selection, I'll tell you what, like somebody can have a perfect workflow, like you put a beat together in like 5 minutes, I'm sure like a lot of producers can do that. I can put a beat in 5 minutes, put together in 5 minutes. But in addition to that, spending that time to craft it, spending that time to arrange it, spending that time to make sure you level it properly, spending that time for some sounds not to clash with others, spending that time to pen some instruments. Like, not everything has to be dead center, not everything has to be on the right or on the left. You can make it really professional, and you can make it sound like you know what you're doing just by tweaking some basic things. And sound selection is very, very important in that sense. And again, listening to EA when it comes to sound selection, I'm talking from the perspective of someone who doesn't necessarily have a lot of gears per se. I produce with a MIDI keyboard, yes. So the sound is not coming from an analog, gear. So I can't really sit here and tell you all the difference and why it's very different. What I can tell you, even if you're using a MIDI keyboard, the VST choices, okay, the sound choices for particular beats is very important. It's very, very important. For me, my production style is very specific these days, because it took me years to even come up with a sound that I can say, you know what, that's my style, that's my sound. My sound, since I produce primarily hip hop beats, I love EDMs, and I do produce some EDM beats here and there, but when I produce hip hop beats, I love to incorporate EDM sounds to it. The reason I do that is it gives the beat like a weird, like, what is that? Like, you wanna ask yourself, what is that sound? It's hip hop, because I make sure, like, with my production, if it's a hip hop beat, it's the dominant sound from it will be hip hop, right? From the drum patterns, from everything but I will add some EDM sound, like right behind it, like very subtle, but you will hear it. It'll make a difference. If you pay attention to the sound, you might ask yourself, what is this sound, right? In addition to that, I'm from Haiti, and still to this day, I would remember when I, on a Sunday morning, for instance, you at your house, and a group of, like, you're talking about like 40, 50 people just passing in front of your house, just walking or just singing for the heck of it, just randomly, and for a good like 15, 20 minutes, they're just passing with a bottle. We're talking about like glass bottles and like spoons and like, buckets, and just playing, and you hear ding 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 ding. Like, so when I'm making hip hop beats, a lot of times I will incorporate some percussion that make those glass bottle sounds, and you might not realize it, not just as a hi-hat style, but as a percussion. Like, it comes in a certain rhythm, and it really changes the character of the beat. So these are the ways that I personally found to make my sound different, and I can explain why it's different, because you can be different in what you do, and you're not having you're unable to explain why it's different. But I've been able to do that. Especially these days, I'm very confident on how I'm putting a beat together, how I want it to sound, because I have it in my head, and I practice it, and I go over it over and over again. But the importance of sound when you're making a beat is very, very important, and it will go a long way. I am very confident that even if you don't have some of the most expensive gears in the world, even with just a MIDI keyboard, even with just your laptop, no MIDI keyboard, nothing, try to either download or go on YouTube and check the instrumental of some of your favorite songs. Listen to it, and if you are able to take a second to, let's say the beat has a piano in it, take a second take a second and try to listen to just the piano throughout the beat. If you're fairly new to it, it might be a little challenging in order for you to separate each of these instruments. But if you're over time, your ears, it's really just ear training. Again, I didn't go to school for that. I wasn't around like studios like constantly, or people telling me, hey, pay attention to this, pay attention to that. Of course, I've had some mentors. I had some people who give me some pointers. But what I'm here to say, as a ear practice method, try your best to try to pay attention to each instrument. If it's a beat that you really love and you know it sound professional, and you're trying to challenge yourself to make a beat that kind of sound as close to that particular beat, try to start listening to each instrument by itself as much as you can. Like the full master beat, you're listening to the instrument, see how it sounds, and try to replicate it. Not, you don't have to remake the beat, but I'm saying like try to replicate the same sound, or at least understand what makes it professional. Play one of your sound from your, from your DAW, from a VST of your choice. Play it, see how it sound in comparison to the piano or whatever it is from that other beat that you like. And if you can make that comparison, you'll start understanding, okay, I'm hearing a spacey. To tell you the truth, one of the first things you can try is by adding a little reverb to whatever instrument you're doing. If it's a dry instrument, try to add a little reverb, or try to add a little delay. Not too much, but just enough that you will see there is a difference in the sound. And if you do that, I can guarantee you, if you have not done that before, that's a great way to start understanding why your sound can be more professional without necessarily spending a lot of money on different sounds. Now, when it comes to drums, it's important to know why you may see at some of these studios why producers or engineers have different studio monitors. If you can't afford monitors just yet, it won't stop you from producing. It may be a little bit more challenging. Now, if you have access to a car, that could be one of the best ways to make a beat on your laptop or desktop without monitors, maybe just a headphone, or even without it. I'm going far. I'm talking even if you don't have a headphone. What if you can't afford a headphone right now, but you're really determined to start making beats? It's going to be 10 times more challenging if you're going to use the speaker from your laptop only, or just a cheap monitor for your laptop. It won't be the same. However, if you are able to make a beat from there, and if you do have access to a car, and you can go to that car and play your beat in it, you can start comparing how it sounded in your laptop. It could sound like dope as hell, like you playing this shit, like you can't stop playing it, and then you go to a car, it's horrible. That happened to me so many times. Worst part, when I was in New York, in the beginning of my production time, I did not have a car, and I had a studio monitor, but it was not EQ. Like it was not a good monitor whatsoever. What I would think come out of that monitor is not the same. It wasn't EQ'd, none of that. So I'll take some of these beats, put it on a little MP3 or a flash drive, and I would go to a studio, and then they play it, and I just close my eyes and, man, wow, like it sounded horrible, but it sounded wonderful in my speakers or the headphone I was using. So these are things that you should consider for sure as you're getting better at production. So sound selection, including drums. Again, shout out to EA Ski. I did purchase his drum kits, amazing drum kits, and it's very curated. If you understand what will make a difference, particularly hip hop production, your beat may sound great on your studio monitor, especially if they have 808, and you play it on your phone speakers, like it doesn't sound, you barely even hear the kicks. These are the times that you can combine some kicks. You can have a club kick underneath. When I say club kick, for the ones who might not know, it's more of a dry or a short sound, like and then the 808, which is more round and with stays longer. So these may not be may not come out as much on your phone speakers or your laptop speakers and stuff, but the club kick, chances are it will. But if you combine it and the club kick is subtle enough that it doesn't dominate the 808 because you want the 808 sound to be there, you put it just enough that it will balance on a low budget speaker. Well, your phone could be an iPhone or S22 Ultra, S23. It doesn't matter. It's still a phone speaker. It doesn't carry the same weight, the same low end capabilities as a studio monitor. But if you do have a combination of club kick to it, it will sound better. Now, also one last thing, if you have the right drums, it will make a difference. You don't have to use multiple plugins, especially in beat making, man. Like, you don't need to have that. Matter of fact, you could have like so many drums, part of different drum kit packages. Still, if you find, let's say 10, 20 of them that work perfectly, don't keep going crazy and keep trying to find new drums like that. Because at the end of the day, really, instruments such as pianos, synths, and trinsgates and stuff like that, they will make a beat sound 10 times different, or you will hear a difference if you're making beats, switching the instruments here and there, and the drums, not the drum patterns, I'm talking about the drums itself. If they're not that much different, people might not really pay attention to this kick is more of a round kick than the other. Yes, if they're paying really close attention, they can. But I'm saying if something works, stick to it. Doesn't mean you shouldn't experiment, because I experiment all the time, to the point I have some sounds that I can't even say what type of genre it is, but it is different. It is very different. So once again, definitely consider sound selection when it comes to making beats, from drums to instruments, and then try to compare it to some of your favorite beats, favorite instrumentals. And once you make that difference, I can guarantee you will be on your way. With that being said, thank you so much for watching. If this is your first time, definitely consider to subscribe. On the weekends, I do have a live jam session where I'm making beats live, and really it's a full process. It's straight up exactly how I make beats. Sometimes it could take me 10 minutes to put it together. Sometimes it may take me 30 minutes or even an hour. But I like to share my process, because some people who wants to get into production may not understand how much it takes to get better. And even if you're really good, you can still struggle with some particular beats. And that's why I do that. So again, if this is your first time, definitely consider to subscribe. And then until then, peace.